I could share it out. All right. So all bad comments about Dante, do not hold those in. So again, thanks everybody for coming to hang out with me here at the meetup. For those who joining the first time, welcome, right? And for those who are repeat, thank you for attending again. What I like to do in these sessions is you won't get a lot of PowerPoint from me always. Most of the time, if you do get a large PowerPoint, it's when I invite a developer advocate here to speak about either upgrades or upcoming features. Okay. What I like to do is really get into the tool and show some things. The last session we've had, uh, hang on one second. I muted somebody. The last session, hello from Raleigh. Yes, hello. The last session we've had. Um, I've asked what they would like to see, and it was asked that I go over integration using import sets. So today, I'll be walking exactly through that, how to create an import set table, how to create a transform map, small transform scripts, and then also utilizing the REST APIs in order to create incident, which we're going to do from the use case. You're going to see in a second, and walking through the entire thing just of that process. All my meetups are open to speak. Any questions, stop me during it. You're not interrupting. You are not bothering me. You're not causing any issues. You can please feel free to ask and even give advice. If you think I could do something better, a different way, I'm all for it. Okay. So please feel free to speak. This is our session, not just mine. I'm just leading it. Okay. All right. So quick and dirty agenda. Again, we're going to go over the use case. That will be the only last slide we're going to see. And then from there, we're going to go into the tool where we're going to create an import set for the integration, set up some transform map, not some, a transform map, create a service account for this integration, and then we're going to test it out using REST API Explorer, which is in the tool, and then also using Postman. That Postman is outside of ServiceNow. And that is a tool you can download. I will provide the link once we're all done. If those of you who are not familiar with Postman, it is a way to make external REST API calls to test outside of the tool to ensure it is working. Okay. Use case. Now, in most of these integrations, most times they're bi-directional. Because of time, I'm going to keep it just to a single direction. So we're going to simulate incoming to ServiceNow, okay? Because that's what we can control. So this use case is, as a support team, we want to receive incidents from our vendor when they are created. I know I made it very simplified. You may not even hear that. That's a story written form. It's pretty funny. But anyway, um, so the one thing we're going to say here is the second piece of here is we want to set values on the incident form that come in for the short description, the contact type, and then we want to assign it to a particular group. Okay. Now this one I'm going to assign it to a service desk. Okay. All right. So now, without further ado, let's get into the actual ServiceNow tool. No more PowerPoint. Now, if you love PowerPoint so much, I'll gladly, give you all the PowerPoint you can read. Okay, that's the bad joke anyway. But I
No
do
thanks.
have I do have documentation that I could share with you on this particular topic, not just from myself, but also into the ServiceNow docs that talks about this and the developer portal that talks a lot about this. Okay. I will share those links with everybody here directly with import sets as specifically the integration endpoints. Okay. All right. With everything, I start from the basics. I know you may all know this, but I start with creating an update set. Oh, who would have thought that you need an update set? So first things first, now I know for those who don't know how to get there, what I like to do is I like to, when I'm in an instance that I'm working on for a particular client, I always create a favorite called my update sets. And you're going to say, well, Dante, what is my, how do I get it? Really, I just filter on created by, which is me. Now, in this instance, I'm admin. It'll be created by whatever is your ID. And I just like doing that because it's easier for me to see my update sets, right? Instead of going either to the local update sets, from the list and then have to toggle through. I easily can come here, see mine, click on it, and say, set this as my current update set. Makes life so much easier. And if you never did it, you heard it here first from me. Sorry, bad joke. Okay. Anyway. All right. So we're going to create an update set. First things first, and we'll just give it a name. I love naming conventions. I always start with my initials somewhere in there. Now, if I was working on a client site, I always would put a story number in there, right? And then I always say either at the end, some people do or don't do a short description, but just for this demo, I'll just say, integration, right? Well, let's name it vendor incident integration. And I just did a no that I don't like to do, but I'll fix that. I'm a big database underscore guy. Some, not always, but I try to keep it clean. And then I just made another big mistake. I don't want it in the GRC profile. Let me change this back to global. Yeah, we'll reload that form and we will put the name back. And then I will submit and make current. Okay. So that is my update set. Now we are ready to create that import set table. So if we remember, I'm not going to go back to the PowerPoint, but they wanted to be able to pass values for short description, and contact type and assignment group. Now, what we're going to do is create a table, right? Now, I am very old school, okay? Now, this is my meetup for all of you people who like to use the new GUIs and all that fun stuff. Um, I'm joking, by the way. You can use them, okay? I like to use the old school tables and columns. I am very much old school when I create the tables. But again, you can create that table however you want. I do not like the UI interfaces because I'm just old and you're trying to teach me new things. No. Okay, bad joke again. Yes, you can use those and they work fine. I'm used to this way and I kind of like controlling it a little bit more and I'll show you why.
Yeah,
So
I'm
in
I'm
here,
with you there on that one, Dante. I'm old school
great.
like you.
Yeah, it just it's and I it's little control for me too because
Yeah.
and I'm going to show why I get into it. So
Yep.
first things first is the label. We'll call it vendor. Let me just say vendor because I don't want to use any name X, right? Integration. No, let's call it import, right? So gives us a table. Now, the most very important thing here is that you want to do, um, I'll just do a star import. You want to do the import set row is the table you want. Okay. Import set row. That is the import set table, of course. And then you're going to extend that table, right? Meaning you're going to create a new table with all the same functionality of the import set row table, right? So if you've ever done where you've loaded data into the load data functionality, it automatically creates a table for you in this format. This is doing just that without actually going through that loaded data because we don't need to do that way at this moment. There's many different ways you can do this create table, but this is what we want to extend the import set row. Now, if I wanted to create a module, meaning a menu, I would say yes, create it. For this purpose of this demo, I will. I typically do not, right? I do that later in most times. So what I like to do, let me admit to a couple people here. What I typically do is make sure, yeah, so many ways sharing a great table. Yes, it is make sure that I do a menu later, right, with all of the things that I want to do it. So I'll have transform maps. I may have just different things that I have, and I'll have the whole menu there just for the integration. Okay. But for now, I'll keep it here so we can look at it. So we'll have a menu option there. Another one I like to do here, I don't like to create a new role for these, okay? Now, one thing is that when you get into licensing, okay, let me do my disclaimer. I am not speaking of costs. I cannot talk to you about cost and how much it will cost. I can tell you that creating and adding new roles and tables sometimes required depends on your license, but roles get funny when you start dealing with licensing. So what I like to do here, because I will just use the import again. I use the import set transform loader, sorry, the loader as the base role for this table. And you're like, well, Dante, why do you do that? And I'm glad you asked. The reason I do that is that if instead of granting this access to which I'm going to show you in a second, we create up the service account. Instead of giving them a lot of elevated privileges, you give them just a basic import set loader role so they can actually create the data in the import set. Then that cuts down, and you have to give them an ITIL role, right? Now, that's a different thing. As people know in the ecosystem, an ITIL role does equal a license. So again, trying to give a little bit better. And again, this is not going around what ServiceNow says as best or leading practice. They actually say queuing import set is the leading practice. Okay. This role is just giving you a better way to control all custom roles that you do not need to create. I just want to be very clear. Okay. Going over to the columns, right? Again, I'm old school. I could do this here. So what I do for the columns, we said they wanted short description, right? So I will give them just that. Did I spell that right? Yep. Also description. And let's do another field that's not in the requirements that they told me afterwards. For those who've been in the ecosystem developing for a while, requirements never come after the first initial set, right? So they give us a new requirement right now that says, hey, we also want to do vendor ID. So I says, okay, fine. We're going to do vendor ID or vendor number. Let's say vendor number, like their ticket number. Okay. So what I do for all of these in the import set to me, these are all string values, right? I do not create them as any other field. Um, like let's say if I was using like even for assignment group, because assignment group is in our Stephen. Stephen says I get all my requirements at once and there's never any scope creep. Said no developer ever. Amen, Stephen. But I get for let's put the assignment group on here too as well. Let's just do this really quick. I'll throw this on there. Again, I'll do this as string value. We will not be setting the value from the vendor on this, but I'm going to show you how we can do things here a few different ways. So short description, max length, I'm going to do 100, right? Description, I'll do 4,000 characters. Vendor number, I'll do no more than 100 there. I could do 40 probably. Let's do 40 just to make it different. Assignment group, we'll do 100 there as well, right? So now I have all my fields and I have mine ready for my table. I'm going to go ahead and just right click and save this table, right? And once it's done saving here, we're going to see that, oh yeah, we know, whatever. We don't need that. So once we have it, we have all of our fields. Short description, description, vendor number, assignment group, all are here. Now these other fields were inherited from the system import set table, okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a quick look at this table. Now, since we created a vendor menu, we now see our vendor X imports table, right? In our menu, excuse me. So I'll go to it. Well, before I do, yeah, I'll go to it. So if we go to that table, now you would see what's very familiar for those who've used ServiceNow for import. You'll see now this is an import table, right? And there's my import sets, transform maps, etc. Now, the main thing that I like to do from here is I like to create my transform maps now, right? So I'll go into the transform maps, but before I go there, okay, before I get there and too far ahead of myself, any questions? Okay, silence
Oh,
means I'm either doing really good or really bad, but either way, I'll take
I'll throw a
it.
question out there.
You got it,
I
Sharon.
have never made an import set table through that interface. I have always simply gotten a test set of data and loaded it and let it create a table. Do you feel there's a reason why one is better than the other or a use case that makes it so?
Yeah, that's Sharon, great question. All right, so yes, so if they had a provided me a sample data that I was actually importing data and not doing an integration, which is this use case, I would have definitely did the load data and loaded the data into the system and have it created on its own, right? This particular use case is saying they came to us and said we want to do an integration. Instead of going direct to the incident table, I'm using the integration from an import set perspective so I can manipulate data using transform maps. And that's where I wouldn't load data because there wouldn't be any data to load. Now, we know we can go kind of talk to them and say, give me an export and I can try it, right? And I can go make one. But I like kind of controlling it this way just to know how to do it, number one. But two, the nuances I do in this, it kind of calls for it, right? And it gives you the ability to handle it a little differently.
Thank you.
And man, no worries. And again, when I don't have the data, right? If they gave me an extract, by all means, I'm going to load that up and give me that table. Makes it a lot easier when you have a lot of fields. And then you can kind of just load it up and then, but you still have to go back into the table and modify the dictionaries. Because for those who know, when you start importing data, sometimes you don't have all of the field sizes and character limits. So you have to edit those fields, or if they're not, they'll get concatenated if you don't have the right character limits. But that's always a fun one once you get the real data.
Ooh, there's a preference to help with that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you, Darren.
Yeah, no worries. Um, any other questions? All right. Moving on. Sharon, a great question. That was a really good one. Moving on to the transform maps. So I'm again going back here. We're going to transform map from our table. I'm going to click new to create a new map. Now, what a transform map is, I'm going to basically say anytime any record is inserted into the vendor X import table, right? I'm going to say, where is it going to go? What is it going to do, right? So if I don't create a map, it's just going to sit in that table and do nothing, right? But creating a map says I want to go and create it into another table, which we did an import. Import another, to me, an import set is another word for staging table, right? So it's in a staging table, if you will, and I'm now going to go create it. Now the requirement said they want to create an incident, right? So we're going to go ahead and map it to the target table being the incident. Now I'm just going to name this map vendor, gotta spell vendor right, vendor X import map, right? And best one I got. From here, there's a lot of options you can choose, right? Clearly, we want it active. Clearly, we want that. You could say run business rules, meaning that after it inserts, it'll run all the business rules on the incident table. That's important because what you want from there is to make sure those business rules run for like assignment rules, right? So any questions on the run business rules? I want to make sure we're good there because that one's an important one. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Don't worry about it. If you want to enforce other mandatory fields, right, you can say, don't allow this to create that record on the incident table if it doesn't have all the mandatory values set, right? I typically put this to no because, there's fields like maybe it might be other fields on there, but I'll let the incident come to assign to the group, right, that we're going to assign it to. And then from there, they will go ahead and finish out, whatever fields that they need on the incident. But they'll have the initial ticket so they can go ahead and work that said incident. So now that we have this, what I love to do is say auto map matching fields. Now, you saw us do short description, and assignment groups. So I'm sure it's going to automatically grab those sometime today. There you go. Thank you. So as you can see, it automatically grabbed those. Now I left one major field out, but I'll leave that for now. I'll come back. I won't even, never mind. Don't scratch that I said that. So now we have the fields mapped. Now, two things can occur, right? Um, what I do not have mapped is what? The vendor ID. Now, I'm going to leave that off for just one moment because I'm going to handle that in a transform script. But let's just go ahead and say with these fields, we're going to create the record. Now, there's one thing that I like to do in these integrations where I say I did leave off a field and I'm going to go and add it back, right? For us, it's going to be probably going to put the vendor ID on here or a number field or some type of sys ID field that we can map to. But I'll come back to that in 2 seconds. So now that we have this, there's two things you can do, right? One, we can say we're done. Anytime they send this, it's going to go create an incident. We're good. Can anybody say what will occur if they send us a bad data on the assignment group that we're mapping that we do not have? Okay, I'll tell you. So if they send us data that we don't have in ServiceNow, I'm going to open up this field to kind of explain it to you, right? So when you do mapping of reference fields, very, very important. This is very important. When you do reference fields, the one thing you want to check is this nice field called choice action. Okay. If they send us a value of Dante's greatest service desk that's in the world, okay, I do own that group. Okay, you can look it up. It's in Google. Okay, it's not in Google. I'm just joking. Um, it will actually, because of the choice action, it will create that group in your table, in your groups table, and then it will assign it to that group that will have no members, no roles, no nothing. We do not want that, right? So what we're going to say is this choice action is we would ignore if we do not find a match, right? So if they send us data that we do not have a mapped value to, it will not match, and it's not in our group's table because it's the assignment group that references the group table. It would ignore that value, and when it creates the incident, the assignment group will be empty. Again, right? Process-wise, we don't want that, but that's what happens. Second thing is about reference fields. If they're not sending us a sys value, right, that, it's going to be hard for them to assign the group. So what we want to do, what I do a lot of, is utilizing the reference value field name. So that way they can send me a friendly name. So you could use the sys for sure. It's not a don't even, if it's always the same group over and over and over again, I'm going to show you two ways to do that. But they could send a sys, it will work just fine. But let's say they're going to send the name, Dante's greatest service desk, right? So what you want to do is utilize a reference value field name. And then I would say they're going to look, and basically what we're going to look up on the group table. So since then, we're going to say look it up by name. So since they're going to send us the friendly name or the named value of the group, that's how we're going to be able to basically query it using the name and be able to tag it with the group. Okay. I see Ashish said it's best practice to set the choice axis to ignore for all field maps. Absolutely, Ashish. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to take this up and I'm going to update and go back to the map. What we're going to do though is when this finishes updating. Sorry, my PDI is very, very slow today. So two things, right? So again, I told you the reference field. We're going to take this data for short description and description because it's string, no issues there. But let's talk about a transform script, right? So on the incident table, there's a couple of values that we want to set that they're not sending us. So I'm going to open up a new incident just to kind of look at values. Okay. I'm not going to create one. So channel, right, our contact type, we're going to set. Now, the best way to do this is you want the database value of the field name. So what I like to do is I right click on here and I'll say show. It's all called contact underscore type, right? But I'm going to show the choice list. Okay. I'm going to grab some, and this is how I'm going to grab the values. Now you see here's the table and it's the incident. I'm going to just do a show matching on that. And they want to set it to, I'll set it to monitoring, right, just for now for kicks, right? So contact type will be monitoring. Okay. I'm going to go back to my transform map. I'm going to create a new transform script, right? Now, I always like to comment my code, right? So I'm going to say set the incident value to, excuse me, incident, not incident value, set the channel value to, right? What do we say? Monitoring, right? And so in here, they have some call variables that you can call. So the target is the target table, right? The source is the import set table, okay? So in this case, the source would be that vendor X table we created. The target would be the incident. So we're setting the target table value. So it's going to be target. If you remember, it's contact underscore type, right? Equals and we want the value. Now, I know there's 7 different ways for all you scripters and coders out there. You can do set display value. You can did I choose just to set the value. It's easy for me. One less keystrokes for me. Don't blame me. And so it set it to the value of monitoring. Okay. I can do more in one piece of code. But before I do this, I'm going to say we can do this on before or on after, right? So I'm going to do this probably on before as we getting ready to create the record. It'll just set everything up and create it and all in one motion, set that target.contact type. So the incident contact type, or in that case, channel. Also, we talked about the assignment group, right? Again, I'm going to go get groups here. Let me go grab a group from the groups table. And I will pick my favorite group, the service desk. Oh, wait, did I? Oh, no, this is a space in there. Sorry. No, it's in there. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the sys of that group. Okay. Again, I know I can do other things like set display value, but I just like to set the value because it will never change. And the name, the reason why I choose a sys is because let's say tomorrow they want to change the service desk to a different name to be something else, but they just rename the group. I have to touch the code if I do set display value. But if I use the sys long as they don't delete the record, it will always remain the same. I don't have to touch the code again, right? But I can set the assignment group to, right, the service desk. And again, I'll just say, I'll put it up here in my comment and assignment group to service desk. Again, I like to comment my code and our comments because for someone who may looking at it, they can just read it really quick and already know because what does this mean? You may not know. Some people like to put, excuse me, the name of the group here, like, so they know. Either way, just like making sure people understand what your code is saying in layman's terms is always a good thing. Okay. All right. So we'll set these two. I'll save this. And let me go back to the map and we'll take a look. And I'm going to remove the assignment group from the actual field mapping. So what I'm going to say is since we're setting it in a transform script, I'm going to go ahead and set the value, remove it from the map since we're saying we won't get a value from them. Okay. One other thing you can do in a transform script. So let's just take a look at the incident one more time. I would like to look at the form. And this is how I kind of go back and forth. What other values make sense to populate, right? So we know we're going to get the short description. We're going to set the channel, which is the contact underscore type database value there. We're going to set the assignment group to service desk. What about the caller, right? What's going on with the caller? And so well, not many, I like to do is set this caller to the integration ID. So before I do this, what I'll do now is I'll go to the sys user table here. And what I'll do is I'll create a new user, right? And I'm going to call it SVC underscore. SVC for me is service. It's one of the prefix I like to use for them. All your naming conventions, whatever they are, as long as they're standard in your instance, it's fine. So I'll just say vendor X, right? And then I'll just say vendor X integration. Then we're going to say we're going to limit it to web service and it's an internal integration user. This means it cannot log into the GUI. So nobody can use that ID to go to the front end portal, login.do, and use SVC underscore vendor underscore X. Okay. So I will save this. Now, I did not create a group yet for this, but I will do that here in 2 seconds. Let me just create one group and we're going to call it, I'll just call it integration users. I'll save that. I'm going to go ahead and grant it a role of anyone? The role that we gave import set loader. I'm also going to give it transformer because it needs to transform the data. And that is it. Those two. They don't need scheduler or admin because they're not administering or scheduling the imports. So long as you give it loader to load the data and transform it, you're fine. Because remember, on the table, that is what controls that table, right? So we will save this. Now we're going to add our vendor X user. Yeah, I did say it right. Yeah, I did. Okay, good. To that group, right? And you're going to say, well, Dante, why did you do that and not just give the roles to the user? Because ServiceNow best practice says you do not give roles to users. You create groups, add the roles to the groups, and then from there, you add the members to that group. Okay. So that's what I am doing. I didn't want to be lazy, even though sometimes I do, I'm not gonna lie, when I'm testing, and then I go and fix it up when I go to production. But for you all, I don't want to shortchange you here on what's going on. So that's what we do. Create the group, give the roles, grant the access. So now that I have the user, right? I'm gonna copy that sysid. Same thing like I did for the group. I'm gonna go back in that transform script. I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to say target, which is the incident.caller ID equals, right, that user record. And so I'm going to say set, update my code again to monitoring, assignment group to service desk, and caller to, let's say vendor X integration, right? So now we have all of the fun things that we need. So recap really quick, okay? One, we created an import set table, right, for vendor X with our menu, right? And granted the role for the security to be the transform set, import set loader, excuse me. Two, we created our transform map, all right, where we mapped our fields and our transform scripts. 3, 4, or 5, if you will. We created the user, the groups, and added the roles and members of that group. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All good. So now that we have all of this created, you can actually test inside of ServiceNow what they call the REST API Explorer. Okay. Now, the REST API Explorer, in order to use it to any table, you don't have to do anything special. Every table is open, not every, most tables are open to the API with an exception of some system tables. Pure system tables will not have opens to the API. So no one can write to your system tables, right? Your syslogs and stuff like that are not open. But task tables, et cetera, and tables that you create are open to these APIs. So what we want to do here now to test it, let's go to the REST API Explorer. To get there, right? So literally it's REST API Explorer. I have it in my favorites, but I wanted to show you. It's under System Web Services, REST API Explorer. Now, once you're here, now, we're not doing, so for those who don't know REST very well, there's multiple things you can do inside of REST. We have a get, which means I'm going to retrieve data from said thing, but that was not the use case. We have a post, which we're going to create a record. That is what we're going to do, right? There's also a put, if you want to modify existing record, of course, delete, and then patches updating record. But let's, for this sake, we're just going to talk about creating a record, okay? So choosing the table, right? We did vendor X import, right? You can choose your table. Now come down here below and we can now start building a request body, right? I do this a lot so I can give this to that vendor. When I'm done, I give them a sample body and a sample response. So let's build the body. So we know we're only going to use just 2 fields for this demo, short description and description, right? Now I'm going to say this is the greatest short description ever. Yep. What did you expect for me to write? Sorry, got to make some fun somewhere. Thank you. All right. So again, these are string fields, right? So so we put them in there as such. We're going to enter string. So this is our sample body. So let me come up. I'm going to talk about these in a few seconds. So if you say, hey, Dante, what are these query parameters? Give me 20 seconds. I'm going to show you. All right. So we got the table we're going against. We're going to simulate doing a call directly to that table. Okay. So let's come on down back down here. So right here, it gives you a sample, request format. Of course, it's application JSON. This is the standard body that you're going to do for REST. Now they have others, application XML, text XML, but most use application JSON. Just for now, if you ever want to do a deep dive with me, just hit me on LinkedIn. I would love to do a deep dive and talk about all things REST or whatever you want to do. Okay. Um, so So what we do here now, we have this at the very bottom. We can go ahead and hit send. Okay. What is going to give you a nice little screen. So are you sure you want to modify this? Because we're now going to go and create a record into this table. And if our transform map works correctly, it should create an incident. Okay. So let's go ahead and say, okay. Come on, there we go. So down below, you're going to see there's our request body that we did. There's our status code 201, which says it was created. Down below is our response body. Now, somewhere in here, right, you're going to be like, oh my God, where's the incident, Dante? So here it is right here. See this sys target sys ID? It gives you the link to the entire incident. So if I use that link, I can go directly to it. And then that's the sys ID value of that said incident. However, I like to use friendly responses for people who work on these things. So we work with other integrations and vendors, and this is where the parameters come into play. Don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to show you just a couple things. So in the sysparm fields right here, I can put in, right? So I took the sys target ID. Where did I get that from? From the response, right? So down here, where did I pass it? Hang on. Pass it? Nope, not too far. Here, right here. SysTarget ID is the actual function, or if you will, of the entire incident, right? So all of this contains SysTarget ID. So I can dot walk to fields on the incident table. So what I could do is says, hey, I want to see systarget sysid dot number. That'd be my incident number. And then also because we may do something with the sysid dot sys underscore ID. Okay. So now I'm going to do that same thing again. I'm going to send it again. I'm going to say, okay. Now look at our response now. It gives me just two. So what does that do for your vendor? When they get this response back in the integration, they can parse that much easier to getting the number. And the reason why I do that in the other body, they would have to do another get call with the sys ID to get the number. In this, I can tailor the message for them. And I can give them as many fields from the incidents they want, right? I can sys target underscore sys ID dot whatever I want from the incident table. And then I will put all of that again, comma separated in the sysparm fields. So anything else? Any questions, comments? Everybody still good? Okay. All right. Okay, good. So we'll keep going. Okay. So what I do from here, so if I was to give this to the vendor, well, before I do that, I'm going to show you what the incident looks like. Let's go back to the incident table. I will close that and let me open up the incident. Because we did some value setting, and I'm just going to open up in a new tab, all open incidents. Oh, wait a minute, hang on, sorry, wrong thing. What is going on with my stuff? How is it created in 7/27/26? Okay, hang on, let me filter this out. 1 second, I've been playing around too much. Created today, there we go. All right, so there we go. So these are our two incidents that we created, right? I did it twice just for our understanding. So as you could see, I'll open up the second one here, it doesn't matter, right? It automatically did our caller from our transfer script, automatically channel, and assignment group, right? And then of course we had our map from our short description. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so back to this, what I do from here, from just a process standpoint, I give the vendor, if you will, who's going to integrate with ServiceNow, this URL, right? Now, all of it, not with the word post, but from HTTPS, and then this is their endpoint. Then I give them the sample request body, right? And say, here's how you call it, right? Then I go down and say, here's a sample response body. That's what you should get in return. It's always good to provide everything what they should expect to see. And this is why I do the REST API Explorer so I can know what it's going to look like. I can tailor it, I can play with it, I can set it up. And then more importantly, it helps, build out your little URL when you use these parameters above, right? So once you do all of this, it automatically appends all of the things you need into that endpoint that you can provide to whoever's going to integrate with your instance. Now, if you really get fancy and they don't know how to do their system and it says, hey, Dante, we are using Python, we're using JavaScript, we're using Perl, PowerShell, whatever it is, right? This is what I do like about ServiceNow in this REST API Explorer. You can use these links here. And I can say, if you need curl, I'll click on that. They'll have a sample curl on how to make that call that you can provide them sample code, right? So these are all things, nice little features that ServiceNow put in there. I would love to tell you I did this. Nope, this is out of the box. But all of these have sample code snippets that you can provide to them. So if they have any issues or say, how do I set this up? I need a little assistance. Hey, I don't write curl, but I can give you a snippet from here. Here you go. I do this a lot for some the vendors that I work with. Okay. Very fancy, Ann. So before I go to the external tool of Postman, does anybody have any questions, comments? Um, Anybody finding this useful? Is it helpful? Not helpful?
Yeah, thank you, Dante. I think this is a really interesting chapter and it is very useful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and also
What
like
I
we'll add one more thing like you use a transform script like as a whenever we have a multiple items to set for that record, you set in a single script. That is, I think, good practice. But we can have an individual column as a script also, right? But your idea
absolutely.
is, yeah, good.
Yeah, so
When we
so
have a
if
more than one.
yeah, so you can have multiple. What I didn't cover, you can have multiple. I'm going to share my screen on a Postman here in a second. So you can have multiple transform maps. You can have multiple scripts. So I've done integrations where they needed to create two different records, right? I know, believe it or not, it's kind of weird, but it did happen. And we used two transform maps to make that happen. So it ran the first map, then the second map. So you can do orders that way. Same thing with the scripts. You can do on before, do this, on after, do that. So there's a lot of things you can do with that code, those transform scripts and just transform maps in general. But that would be definitely a deeper dive we can get into whenever. But that just answering your question, absolutely. You can have more than one transform script. You do not need to put that all in there. But if I'm setting values, I always do one that I set the values on. There's no need to do seven different scripts or seven different fields. I'll say, okay, field value setting, that's one. And then if I'm doing something else, I will separate it totally. If it's a different functionality, I'm doing separate transform scripts. All right. Thank you for that comment. The last thing I wanted to cover is just a simple way of doing this, of testing this outside of your ServiceNow. So REST APIs is in, Postman is a tool. Some people use others, but Postman is free. You can download it. In Postman, you could use this exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do is, if you recall, I had the URL that I took from the REST API after I built it with all of these system parameters. So I'm just going to paste that in there. We have our authorization. Now I created let me go get my ID for vendor X, and I will get the password here. 1 second. So is it, let me, don't tell anybody. Okay, good. You can't see that. Okay, good. Don't you send any posts to my instant. Okay, I'm joking. So I'm doing that. And then I have the sample, and again, the sample body. I'm going to take this from my REST API Explorer that I did, which was, I'm going to here copy and paste it here in a second. So there's the body, right? That was exactly what I did in the REST API Explorer. So now I'm testing the user ID and password and from an external source to that endpoint. So if I hit send, right? There we go. We get a create, and then we get our result, which is what we want, the sysID and the incident number. So again, the reason why I do the Postman, I'm outside of ServiceNow testing to make sure it works. Because what's going to happen is you provide this to the vendor, and if they say, oh, it doesn't work, again, you may have to check other things, firewalls, ports open, all that fun stuff. But at least you know that you can get to it outside of ServiceNow. And that is a good test to have so you can know it does work, right? The one thing you don't want to do is not test it and you give it out and then they have problems and then you go check it and then of course you have problems. He's like, oh, let me make sure I got the right password or whatever it may have you. Okay. All right. Well, we are at the end of this. I try to stick to my hour, but with our 8 minutes to go, I do want to open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, comments, anything they would like to see again, while we have time, I would love to re-show you anything that you want to see. But anybody have anything that they want to, any questions, comments?
I have both actually, Dante.
Sure.
First off, this was great. This was amazing. That was my comment. And my question is, do you have like a YouTube video or not a YouTube video, but like a YouTube channel that kind of goes over stuff like this?
I do actually. And I will share that out. I'm just building it out. You will see a lot of content up there by the end of this month. I will have my first series of creating a catalog item out there by the end of next week. And then the following after that, it will be this series on import sets. So you will see those two out there by the end of next week. Okay. So, yep. And I will send that YouTube out so you can check it out beforehand. And I'll also post up just videos of some of these sessions that we have so we can have a way to get back to them instead of following, trying to find them on LinkedIn. Okay. All right. Any others? And thanks you for that too, by the way, Jacob. Any other questions, comments?
If no one else has a question or comment, I do have one more question. By any chance, do you have like a way to perhaps maybe like schedule one-on-ones with anyone else? Let's say if anyone has like myself has any questions on how to like really get into ServiceNow or anything like that.
Yeah, Jacob. I do it all the time, man. I mentor probably about 15 people right now.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and so it's just one of my passions right now. So I really enjoy that. So if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, I can share with you anybody else too, even though Jacob's asking that question. But just hit me up on LinkedIn and share your email, and I will send you some details, and we can set up a 30 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, and we can talk about what you're trying to do, all that fun stuff. Okay. So
Thank you,
yeah,
Dante.
I'm more than game for that. That is one of my passions of the community.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you
Hey,
very much,
Ashish.
Dante.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. If there's nothing else, I will give you a whole 6 minutes back. I do appreciate all 14 of you. This is a great, great meetup. I do appreciate it. Next one will be in person for those who are in the Charlotte area, and we will have even more fun.
Hey,
Okay?
Dante,
Yeah.
hey, do you, does anyone here have a content that they want for the next session? I think it's a good question to
That is a
ask
good,
before we
yes, it
end.
is. That's a great, thank you, Andrew.
Also, nice
Sounds
to
like
see you,
Andrew is
Dante.
Yeah, you too, you too.
sounds like Andrew's saying he might want to talk about a new studio. I don't know.
That's what it sounds like to me. That's what I heard too. I heard that too,
I
Steve.
mean,
I
if
heard it's a
somebody
new
wanted
studio.
to talk about that, I would come and talk about the ServiceNow Studio.
Then I'll say the next session we should talk about service. Now, seriously, that can definitely be something that would be awesome to see. And I'm just this is no joke. I would love to hear and have a session on the ServiceNow Studio. A lot of new cool stuff on that. So I may
Yeah.
take you up on that offer, and really look forward to that, because I acknowledge they were showing it off, and I really would like to see more about it. But if anybody has any topics that they want to discuss, because this forum is ours, okay? It's not just mine. I'm just leading it. So just please feel free, if you don't want to say it here, throw that out to me either on LinkedIn or in the developer meetup channel. We have a way that you can communicate on there as well on the app. So just let us know, and then we will be more than happy to bring those topics forward. And that's how I brought this topic forward. Somebody saw my post about it, and that's why I brought it forward today. So yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. Sheesh, were you trying to say something?
No, not exactly, but you said like next meeting is going to be sharded in person. Is it possible like we can have in person as well as it is on the Zoom session together?
We could, you know what? I could try to see
Yeah,
what we could do there.
yeah,
I'll see how we could make that work. It may be a little tough because it might be hard to hear, but if at all possible, sure, why not? I'm all for that.
yeah, sure. And Andrew, like just recalling, just giving you a recall that like when we are starting in the RTP area again, you remember we met.
I did. I'm trying to get. Yeah, would love to get
Yeah,
the Raleigh meetup going, and I got some threads working on that. But yeah, we'll get the Raleigh meetup going soon.
Awesome.
yeah. And Chris is also here. He's from Raleigh.
Yep, sure am.
Yeah, we know Chris.
Yeah,
So, hey,
Come on,
if you
Dante.
do, if yeah, I'll be there. You have one in Raleigh, I'll come up for that. So yeah, cool. Well, hey, any others out there?
Looking forward to it in
Dante,
person.
thank you.
Hey, Jerry. Oh, hey, Jerry, man. Thank you, Jerry, for joining, man. I appreciate that. I didn't see you
That's
up there,
all
man.
right. I thought I'd join. I saw you guys are around, so I thought it's virtual and I wanted to join and see what you guys are up to. But great session.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, great team. Have a great evening wherever you are, night, all that fun stuff. And we will speak on the next one. Thanks again. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, all.